the way I look at it is like the best investment in the world is people, and every investor knows this. And so if you show up and you go to somebody and you're like, look, I'm a good investment, give me a little bit of your time, everybody will make that bet on you. So but you got to ask.
Hey, welcome back to Passive Income Pilots, everyone. Tait Durrier here with Ryan Gibson. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. Just got back from a fun trip to the East Coast, or I guess the Midwest, to play in a tournament charity golf outing, and so just happy to be back and excited to meet our guest today.
Yeah, Alexander Scott Felice is a really great guy. I've met him on a number of occasions. He's a blogger, he's a creator, he's a real estate investor, and he's currently working with Brandon Turner. So if you've ever heard of the BiggerPockets podcast, he was on the BiggerPockets podcast, and he's also the creative director of Brandon Turner's new podcast, which is called The Better Life. His goal is to create the most beautiful podcast ever, and I think he's nailed that. If you've seen any of his stuff,
Yeah, I think sometimes we have technical guests on here that are going to talk about how to underwrite or how to do loans or how to set up your LLC or things like that. This is one of the soft touch, the guests that are going to come on and help you with mindset, which is a really important part about your investing journey, and really give you some things to chew on and think about as the episode unfolds. So I think people are really going to like this.
Yeah, I agree. It's a lot about sort of the why behind investing in real estate and what is potentially possible with it. So excited to get to the show. By the way, if you're in the car and you're with the little ones, there is some swearing in this episode, so might not be the best one to listen to around your kids, but it's a really great one. So make sure you get to it if you're putting it on the back.
We don't swear. We don't swear, just for the record.
That's true. We're very, very good about that.
We're clean cut.
Well, with that, let's get to the show. Alex, thank you so much for coming on the show, man.
Very excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, Ryan, I'm gonna kick things off here because I'm a big fan of this guy that you're listening to right now. I've been a BiggerPockets fan for years and years and years. I'd love to get into that at some point, talk about BiggerPockets because some people might not know about it. But you were on episode, I think, 301, and you were one of the first people on the BiggerPockets podcast that I really resonated with because you had this sort of fun, laid back, cavalier attitude. And you said something on there that I loved. You said, I think Brandon Turner said, well, how are you buying all of your investment properties on the MLS when everything is overpriced? And you said, suck it up, Buttercup. And I just love that.
Yeah.
So anyway, let me turn it over to you. Tell us a bit about yourself, a bit about your background, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, to be fair, that was in 2017 when you could go on the internet and just, kind of find deals, and people that were fussing then are sad about it now, right? Because now it is hard to find deals in the MLS. So, but the sentiment is still the same, right? Whatever your struggles are, right? It's like, yeah, everybody's got them. I sort of, let's see, how far back do I want to go? I did 4 years in the Army. I actually just wrote a blog about it today. Some of my experience. Did 4 years in the Army, got out, became a. Can I swear on this show? Actually, I became a professional.
We'll make it fine for this one. We'll preface it in the intro.
I became a professional fuck up for about 7-8 years of my life. Right, drugs, drinking, alcohol, girls, cars, just nonsense. And probably a lot different than a lot of your listeners because I don't know all your story tape, but a lot of your pilots don't get the luxury of effing up for 8 to 10 years of their life and then turning it around and then being successful. And so I had that self-inflicted burden that I had to deal with. And it sort of came to a head in life where I was faced with the decision of like, hey, you got to get your stuff together or you're going to go down the drain of life of which there is no recovery. And I'm thankful that I had that sort of, handcuffs experience that I turned things around.
What was the event that made that change course?
After about a year of 3 or 4 nights a week blackout drunk with alcohol and ending in an arrest, I was like, dude, I'm too talented to be this is a wasted opportunity. This is a wasted life. So I was like, okay, let me get my stuff together. And in some ways it was really good because there's something about life that if you're just complacent enough that you're not forced to make radical decisions, then you can complacency your whole existence away with just like, oh, it's not that bad. And so I got it to a point where it was that bad, but I'm sort of an extreme guy. So this is a theme for Alex, right? So I said, okay, how am I going to get my life together, right? I was always perpetually broke. And I said, I need better friends, right? I need better hobbies, and I need to make more money. And all of those sort of things coalesce with real estate investing, because real estate investing comes with community, right? Actually, most of what you want to do, if it's productive, comes with community. Even bars and alcohol come with communities. Even drug addiction comes with communities, just unproductive ones. So I started changing my communities. I started changing my content. At the time, it's 2014. Real estate had crashed. Everybody told me I was crazy for looking at real estate, which I'm a hyper contrarian. So I was like, that's great. If everybody thinks I'm an idiot, then I'm probably on the right. You guys weren't telling me that before when I was drinking my weekends away. So found the community, found content. And at the time, real estate was wildly easy. The foreclosure boom from the 2008 collapse was upon us. And I just went really, at the time, I felt like, at least I went really big on saving money, being responsible, getting my life together, and really turned it around. And, bought more than most, not as much as I should have. And by about 2018 or 19, I was deep into the BiggerPockets community, writing blogs, trying to create content, trying to help the next person. By that time I had bought, I had gone from something like negative $40,000 in net worth to, owning seven or eight properties in a short amount of time. And I was like, dude, this changed my life, and this can change a lot of other people's lives. And I just wanted to just be that catalyst for somebody else to say, I don't have to get to a cataclysmic event before I start taking this seriously. And so that's when I was on BP. And then since then I've gone even further.
That's great. Was there anybody that helped you through it? I mean, I'm really interested in the recovery of, being in a dark spot. Was there somebody in your life that was your mentor or kind of helped you through that? Or was it just sort of one day I can't go any lower and it's time to change? I mean, that seemed like you had a pretty specific focus, those three things, better life, better community, better cash flow. Was there anybody helping you frame that?
Yeah. I mean, look, there's mentors. I don't say everybody has mentors. You need mentors. But there's never been a singular one person throughout my life that sort of said, hey, this is how you do things. I'm envious of people that have that, whether it's in family or friends, bosses. But I have had a good number of people that have helped me along the way. In real estate, I met a guy that was locally that when I met him, I had one property and he had 22. And I was like, teach me everything. And he did. And
wow.
A lot of it is content, right? There's a lot of content. If you listen to BiggerPockets, it's like, dude, there's 500 episodes. That's 500 mentors that you can now reach out to and say, can you teach me something? I mean,
that's actually what I did when I didn't know anything. People are like, how do you learn all this stuff about real estate? I'm like, I literally downloaded every single episode of BiggerPockets and I listened to every single one, like hundreds of episodes, just on 2x speed. So, I mean, that's a great,
free.
Yeah.
The internet does this really fascinating thing that I think I'll give you a little tidbit here that has helped my life wildly, that people just, with a little courage, they'd have the same effect. There are people that listen to this podcast, pilots, they're listening to you guys, right? They want to learn from you. They could learn from you, and they will not reach out and text or DM because they're like, well, they're too busy, or they're here and I'm here, or all these other things. And the reality is, look, I don't know Tait super well, but I know he's got enough time to take a text message. And so if you just muster a little bit of courage to say, hey, this guy's doing what I want to do, and just reach out and say, can you help me? Yeah. 99% of people will help, especially if they have like less than 1 million followers on Insta or something like that. If you start getting to people where they have, managers of their account, then you're going to get a little lost. But even then, it's possible. I've done it. But to find mentors, it's like.
Can I give two recent examples? Yeah, can I give two recent examples of that? I'm busy. Tait knows I'm busier than like anybody, right? But I always take time. Like I had a vet call me today. We had a half an hour call. I took it at 5 o'clock in the morning because I wanted to get it out of the way. So I got up early, took the time, 30 minutes. And then the second example of that, would be like helping like college students get internships with Spartan. Like I had somebody reach out to me on Instagram literally and say, "Hey, I'm going to this university in California. I can't remember which one it was." He's like, "I want an intern with you this summer." I was like, "Okay, send your resume to this email." And then he starts like next week. So it's so true. Like, and even like a person, I mean, everybody's busy, right? But like I am really busy and I still take time to help people out. So that's a really good point.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it just that little bit of courage to just ask, even if you're, sometimes it's hard. You're an adult, you're a pilot, you're well established, right? You're in charge of the plane, and now you got to go to somebody else and say, "Can you help me?" I mean, that's hard, right? I have people who reach out to me that are vets that like retired from the military, so they come up to me and they're like, "Yo, I was a sergeant major, right? You got out as an E4," and so for them, they're like, "I wildly outrank you." But in this instance now with real estate, like I know more than them. So, look, everybody's got an ego. Well, I don't know. I assume they do. I have one. So I understand that some of those things can be difficult, but the way I look at it is like the best investment in the world is people, and every investor knows this. And so if you show up and you go to somebody and you're like, "Look, I'm a good investment. Give me a little bit of your time." Everybody will make that bet on you. So but you got to ask.
It's absolutely true. Well, if you've ever flown an ILS to runway 2 in Maui, you know how windy it is there, and that's where Alex is sitting right now. So that's what the wind noise in the background is, but that's all right. Alex, I want to know, like, what initially sparked your investment in real estate? How did you get started? Like, why did you want to go into real estate? Because I think, like I mentioned before this recording, I think that a lot of our listener base has caught some sort of a bug, but maybe they haven't yet. And financial freedom kind of sounds like a buzzword. So how did you initially stumble on it, and walk us through that journey?
So I'm not an entrepreneur. Actually, I'm an investor. Okay. Actually, and I really like my lifestyle, for better or for worse. I go back and forth between, I want to live my life.
It's a really good distinction.
Yeah. I want to live my life, and I want to make a lot of money. But that's a whole other conversation. So, but I said to myself, I said from the very start, I was like, I wanted financial freedom. What I didn't want is golden handcuffs, meaning a big job with employees that I then can't, that I'm tied to. So I said, I looked at my life and I said, I got okay credit at the time. I had no cash. Okay. I had a lot of debt. I didn't make a lot of money. I didn't want employees. I didn't have a product to sell. I didn't have a service to give. Right. So you look and you go like, I didn't want a brick and mortar. So like, and I needed cash flow. Okay. I didn't want to invest in the stock market where it was like, okay, in 30 years, you can get some of this equity, but then you have to sell the stock, which then defeats the purpose of owning the stock. It just didn't sit right with me. So I said, I need something that I can own that will kick me off cash flow that I don't have to do anything about because I'm lazy. And I didn't have that much money to put into it, and I wanted it to be tried and true. No crypto, no like wild like e-commerce. It's Amazon FBA or whatever they call them, businesses where it's good for 6 months and then everybody figures out and then it gets crushed. No, it's got to be legit. It's got to be tried and true. And so I was like, dude, real estate. And it turned out at the time, real estate was depressed. It's not depressed anymore, but I still actually more than ever believe that it is the best possible investment if you have an understanding of how it fits into your life. But
can you talk more about like the difference between cash flow and stock investing, for example? So, if the same, it makes the same 7%, let's say the asset, never goes up in value, but it kicks off, 7% cash flow versus something that kicks off no cash flow and it increases in value by 7%. I don't know. Just walk us through that, because I think as pilots, we're so indoctrinated to the stock market. We've got these massive 401ks, everything's in stocks. And every financial advisor, most that you come across, are like stocks, bonds, mutual funds. And it's like, diversify, S&P 500. What's the difference? And why were you attracted to real estate? And what have you found in your journey that continues to direct you that direction?
If you're going to invest in stocks, buy the ETF, buy the low cost ETF. Warren Buffett, I mean, you're not a stock picker. If you don't have time to like decide the difference between real estate and stocks, then buy the ETF and you're going to make your 8%, right? I mean, financial advisors tell you to buy stocks because they get paid when you buy stocks, but you pay more to the financial advisor than you would if you had the ETF. I'm sorry to say, it's scam adjacent. I wouldn't say it's a scam, but it is scam adjacent, right? Buy the ETF, right? They did the studies. You make more if you buy the ETF, and you can just set it and forget it. And then when you want to exit in 20 years, you have to sell your asset. Bro, I don't want to sell assets. I want to keep assets. What if at 65, bro, check this out, 65. I'm 65, I want to retire, I'm going to sell a bunch of assets, I'm going to live off this thing, and then I'm going to live to 120.
Right.
So now I have less assets that are going to go up in value, and I'm living off this cash, which devalues. Terrible trade, right? Terrible trade deal.
That's so much wisdom right there. Like,
Yep.
And there's a great, we'll put it in the show notes. There's an NPR podcast, NPR Planet Money, where they actually, Warren Buffett makes a bet against all his sharpest hedge fund managers. And he gives them 10 years. It's called the $1 million bet. They get $1 million of the hedge fund managers, $1 million into ETFs or just the index, right? And guess what wins? The index funds every time. So
I have a very, very close family relative that works for a big investment firm in Rhode Island, and they, the people who invest to the financial advisors, the financial advisors buy ETFs.
Yeah,
they're taking their 1% or whatever it is for nothing, and so it's scam adjacent. It's scam adjacent. I mean, Warren Buffett said that his fund is not going to go to the fund managers. His fund is going to go to the ETF.
Can we just hang a little bit on what you said, though? I don't think I've ever heard anybody frame that. So you're going to get to retirement. You're going to sell assets, turn it into cash that's subject to inflation that gets worth less, guaranteed is going to be worth less later on. And you hope that by the time you die, you've got all the expended, all the money and all the things you need. That's just so enlightening. And, when you think about real estate, like you hold on to all your real estate and then you can give it, you can have an estate plan and then you get a stepped up basis and you don't pay the taxes on it because you never sold it. And, it's just amazing. That's a great way of framing it very simply. So.
Excellent. Yeah. And I'll tell you something else. This one is it's a little bit complicated. A lot of people don't know this. I think in our world, you guys probably know this pretty well, but for new people, it sounds crazy. But I've been on this rant for a couple weeks, actually, a couple months. In the United States, there's a common claim. As more information about how our economic system works comes out, people say the system is rigged. The system is rigged. The economic system is rigged. And I'm here to tell you that it is 100% rigged. Okay? Here's what happens. Here's the rig. Here is, as far as I can tell, this is the biggest scam in the tax system and how to use it. If I buy a property for $200,000 and 30 years goes by and that property is worth $600,000 and there's no debt on it, I can go to the government, to a bank, and I can get a $500,000 loan on that property, right?
Yep.
That $500,000 is non-taxable. It is a mortgage. And then over the next 30 years, somebody will pay that $500,000 off because inflation is going to make rents go up as well. And then I will have another property, the same property, that's now worth $900,000 and no mortgage. And I paid no taxes on both the 900 or the 500, $1.4 million tax-free. There is no bigger scam than non-taxable cash out refis than that one. And the whole time you can, for 27 and a half years, you can take depreciation bonuses along with it. So I say the word scam because it's a little bit theatrical, but it is purely legal tax law, and everybody in real estate does it. And there's nothing like that in stocks, not even close.
And everybody can do it too, right? I mean, that's the thing. Yep. Like, people hear this and they, or people hear stuff and they're like, it's a scam, and I don't want to do this. It's like, okay, well, change your mind, right? Change your mind, get your mind right, because you can anybody can do this. I mean, yep. I know guys 21 years old, they got like 90 units. You just got to get going at it, right? And you don't have to start with a pile of money. I didn't start with a pile of money. You didn't start with a pile of money. You started on the floor, right? Like that's, and like rose from, a really bad spot to 7 properties really fast.
Something else I'd like to point out.
We have 80 now, by the way.
Nice.
That's amazing.
Congrats.
Something else I'd like to point out is, the industry is riddled with stories like yours, Alex, where, people start with nothing, no cash, negative savings. And they can build a sizable portfolio and get on a right track. If you're already making $300K a year, your road is paved. It's like it's much easier to go from here to here than from zero to there. So anyway,
Well, so there's an interesting thing. Look, everybody's story is going to be different because everybody has different resources, and so the way you invest, you don't really want to do what I do. I wouldn't do what I did if I had to start over again because I have cash now. So now I do some probably some of you guys is I've done a couple apartment deals and we raised private money, which is another thing that didn't exist 20 years ago. This is a new
right.
sort of phenomenon that a regular investor can invest into a smaller, real estate fund that didn't exist 20, 30 years ago. So these are new sort of opportunities. But my return as a GP is not that much more than my return as an LP. And if I had cash, I would just invest with with partners that I trusted and understood the deals a little bit, and I would make 80 or 90% of the same return with zero labor. So like,
Right.
if you want to do what I do, right, quit your pilot job and go put the sweat equity into going finding deals. And by the way, deals are incredibly hard to find right now, right? If you're if you're a smaller operator, they're incredibly hard to find right now. But if you have cash and a job and you don't want to do that, you can take cash and you can put it into these operators, and earn almost the same return while having a real asset, while having the depreciation benefits, right? And then some, depending on what your level of involvement is, sometimes you get those tax. The depreciation, the accelerated depreciation bonus is almost as good as the refi bonus. But if you don't even want to do that, if you don't want to be purely passive, like, no, I want to own my own house. I want to own my own $200,000-$300,000 house. There are ways to just, hey, I got $100,000, I got $200,000. I'm going to park it into a house in Phoenix. Oh, I say $200,000, $300,000. I got $300,000. I'm going to park it into a house in Phoenix, and I'm just going to sit on it, right? And I have to make sure. Look, don't just go buy anything. You got to make sure that it cash flows, whatever. But let me just tell you, the Federal Reserve, technically a private bank, has come out and said, we want our target inflation to be 2%. That's what it's been for the last 30 years. And it got higher over the last few years. We want our target inflation to be 2%. And what they're really telling you, what they've really gone out to the American public and said, we're going to devalue your dollar by 2% per year. That's our goal.
The target.
Friends, that's our goal. Yep. We need to get it down because right now it's devaluing more than 2%. And so with stocks, it's sort of hard to know where this is affected, because I don't know exactly which stocks are affected specifically by currency valuations. But with real estate, I know exactly how it's affected. It goes up, right? It goes up. People's income goes up, and then your debt stays the same. So my mortgages, my $50,000 mortgages on my now $200,000 houses are fixed. Right. And exactly. So you bet against the future. Guess what? If the future inflation goes up like it's gonna, your valuation goes up, your debt stays the same. If the rates come down, you have optionality. You can refinance and get the lower rates. Like, yep. Dude, real estate is the simplest business. It's all fixed costs. You know what it's going to make day one, and you have a system where you can only make it get better.
When you're touching on something that Ryan and I are actually planning to do a one-on-one on, which is inflating out of your debt. So that's a conversation that we'll really unpack on a Thursday sometime soon. You said you started saving money. I want to see if you have any good tips, tricks on saving money, because it's really easy, especially in our careers, to enjoy lifestyle creep. We spend a lot of time being poor, or at least we did. Ryan and I, we spent a lot of time being poor. Pilots nowadays are making pretty good money out of the gate, but it's really, the income creeps up real fast, and it's really easy to let your lifestyle do the same. So Alex, what are some tips or tricks that you have to sock away money and avoid lifestyle
the easy
creep?
answer is the one that nobody ever wants to hear, and that's sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There's your social media clip, by the way. The harder answer is this. If you go on the internet and you look at Tait's life, you're going to want to spend whatever you can spend to live like he lives. And that's a dangerous sort of thing. That's why I don't follow Tait on social media anymore, because it makes me angry about the inferiority of my life. Just kidding. So some of this is it's kind of like when I was drinking too much, right? When I was messing my life up, it didn't seem like it because everybody in my social circle was doing it, and so it seems normal. And so you kind of have to get out of. You have to be a little bit of a contrarian. If you're surrounded by people that do this, you either have to be a contrarian type of personality, or you have to get. I'm so sorry to say, different friends, or be the leader of your friend group and say, hey, like let's give all this up. Um, we've decided, you've realized that you've started to dance in the end zone a little too soon. There's a lot of life, a lot of work left to be done, and you can buy a lot more later. It really is just sacrifice. I mean, if you're making 50 grand a year, there's no reason why you can't be a millionaire inside of 5 years. If you're making 50 grand a year, with some like sacrifice, right? With some hard work. If you're making more than that, it's very, very easy. It's default. The problem is you. And so you need people around that will tell you that. I'm sorry to say, like, you need people around that will tell you that first. And then you need to brainwash yourself with content and community that have a purpose that is higher than whatever material things that you think are important. Your coffee makers, your trips, your cars. It's like, yeah, you got the Mercedes. You're the only one that's impressed. And actually, you're probably stressed out about the payment. So like nobody wins here. But you need people around that'll be like, hey man, if you want to hang out with me, you got to be an achiever and I'm not impressed by your flashy stuff. And that's hard. But those communities exist. Those people exist. So you just need to make a little bit of sacrifice. You need people around that make that sacrifice feel very important because you're going to do something higher, not just invest for the balance sheet, but like, what do you want your life to be like? Do you want your own airplane, your own jet? Do you want to be an entrepreneur? Do you want to be able to retire? I don't want to say retire because I hate that, but do you want to be able to quit your job earlier, right? And do what you want?
Or semi-retire, fly less.
Yeah.
Semi-retire, fly less, or fly fly for a famous celebrity or a famous entrepreneur, some cool stuff. I mean, look, if you just want to do what you're doing, make a big salary, right? And how do I say it? You got to know what you're saving for, right? Saving for the sake of saving is brutal. Saving for the sake of saving is brutal. Nobody in America does it because they're like, if I save $100 a month, it doesn't make a difference, and I'm less happy, so they quit. That you have got to have a higher purpose. And
that's so good.
And yeah, that's different for everybody.
Yeah, there has to be a reason that there's something that you're saving those dollars for. And I think if you see the vision, if you start to understand real estate and you start to understand the kind of cash generation that it can produce, and you look at that dollar not as, sacrificing it, not being able to spend it today, but instead saying, if I don't spend it, it can go to work for me for the rest of my life. I think that's the big shift.
Yeah, the question I usually ask people, and it's like a little bit of a getcha question, is I ask them, do you want to spend money or do you want to make money? And they go, I want to spend money. I'm like, then you're screwed. I can't help you because as soon as you get it, you're going to spend it. You have to learn how to enjoy making money. Some of that's, dude, I don't know how old you guys are. Some of that's just a maturity thing. If you're still in your 20s, then the sooner you can figure out that everybody, that you're dumb as when you're 20, the sooner you can figure that out, like the better off you're going to be.
Well, and I think that, we're all very lucky as aviators. Most of us enjoy what we do, as long as we're not doing it too much. I know that I love flying airplanes. I have no intention of ever quitting as long as I don't have to fly 90 hours till I'm 65. I don't want to fly 90 hours a month. If I can fly 40, I'll be a happy guy all the way through to the last day I'm allowed to fly. So to me, it's supplementing. I'm already having a great time earning the money. I'm having a great time investing the money. And as Jesse Itzler's wife, I forget her name, but the woman who founded Spanx, who is a billionaire, she famously said, "Money's fun to make. It's fun to spend. It's fun to give away." I love that.
Alex, I want to change it up a little bit. What do you least enjoy about your current life right now? What are you working on right now?
I am so somewhere around 2020, real estate, it did get a little bit harder, especially for a smaller operator like me to buy multifamily. And so I was like, well, we're selling C-class apartment buildings at 5 cap, and that's not going to last. So I decided I was going to take a little time, travel the world. And along the way, I became a photographer. And so I've always enjoyed taking pictures. And like anything in life, you do it long enough, you get good at it. So I started traveling the world, and I started finding that real estate entrepreneurs, who I know many of, wanted to hire me to come around their trips and make content for their masterminds and things like this. And a guy named, and in 2022, we sort of started chatting. A guy named Brandon Turner. He was the host of the BiggerPockets show. He's going to start a new project, and he was looking for somebody with mad camera skills to move out to Maui and do full-time content, creative direction for a podcast and content. And so, it's been hard because it's not as profitable as being a real estate entrepreneur, but the universe sort of stuck me with this camera and immense talent. And now I'm compelled to give this gift away to people. So I'm out here in Maui trying to create a world-class podcast, video podcast, and trying to build the company that we started. It's called BetterLife. It's a community plus events membership accountability membership group, and we're trying to build that up. And it's hard because it's sort of starting fresh. I'm not like a career content guy, but so there's definitely like me working my job that's difficult, and then the other side of it is stepping away and saying, hey, money's not most important right now. I mean, I'm doing well, but I'm trying to chase this, I guess it's like a lifestyle thing, right? Like what's meaningful, not what's profitable. And my guess is a lot of your listeners, pilots, there's a lot of people, Tate, kind of like you just said, like they love flying planes, but what version of that is, most meaningful? Is it flying commercial jets? I don't know planes, but like, is it flying commercial jets, or is it flying some private tricky thing? And there's also, I don't know. There's all sorts of stuff like that. So I'm going through this thing where I have these skills that make money, but they're not what's most fulfilling. And so I'm taking some time to do what's most fulfilling.
Well, I've been following what you've been doing, and it is world class. It's beautiful. So if you haven't checked it out, I'm sure you can just Google BetterLife, and I'm sure if you haven't heard of Brandon Turner, he's probably the most famous guy in real estate. So
yeah. And by the way, I have zero chance of doing this if I didn't have cash flow real estate paying me every month.
That's
right?
so good.
I make income, but let me tell you something. There's a freedom that comes with self-reliance, where it's like, dude, and I told Brandon when I first got out here, and I'll tell anybody that, like, when they hire me, I'm like, look, I will come work with you, but like, I can quit anytime. I don't need you.
Right.
So let's make sure we have our sort of it's kind of like you said, Tate, like, I don't want to do this 90 hours a week forever. So like one day you can walk up to your boss, if you have enough money, you can be like, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. And they can say, well, you have to. And say, well, pound sand, right? I'm trying to keep my language right. But,
you're doing great.
That's all right.
But you know what I mean? And it gives you a lot of leverage when somebody's like, well, we don't want to lose Tate, so I guess we will give him the 45 hours a week or the 40 hours a week because we do want him and he doesn't need us. And having cash flow specifically, so your bills are paid. I mean, real estate's both, right? That's what I love about it. Not just stocks where you have equity, you have cash flow and equity, right? I have cash flow coming in every month, and God, if I ever had to selling something, I got lots of money sitting there that I could sell and access, or go get mortgages on and refinance. So I have a lot of movement, both liquidity and cash flow. And so I can come to places and be like, hey, I'm going to come do this because it's fulfilling, and this is like what I really, really want to do. But if it gets out of line, beat it. I'll leave.
Yeah.
And that's a really good way to start going into your relationships. Not as like I don't want to be a pain in the ass, but it does give you a lot more power when you negotiate for anything you want in your life if you don't need it.
Yeah, I would love to share a personal story that's probably relatable to our listeners. So in 2019, rewind, airlines were just crushing, right? Like more revenue was produced by the airlines in like 3 years than the previous 30 years combined. The airline industry was highly profitable, and I was a pilot and flying regularly for the airlines. And man, COVID hit, and it was like no one knew what was going to happen. Like nobody knew. Like all of a sudden, it went from the majors making billions of dollars to losing hundreds of millions of dollars per day collectively as an industry. And then they were just dumping, what are we going to do? Who's getting laid off? How long is this going to last? Airplanes being parked in the desert. It was crazy. And you went from like top of the world, the career is awesome, finally, after like 2 decades of it's kind of not being that great. I mean, maybe you're having fun, but as economically, it's terrible kind of. To like, oh my God, it's awesome. And then all of a sudden the roller coaster like went right down again. Because I had cash flowing real estate, because I had my business, I was like, all right, we're getting some time off, right? Like, and I was excited. And I saw guys like, I saw the forums light up with like, I'm driving for Uber Eats. I'm going to get my CDL. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm moving here. I just bought this house that I can no longer afford. And then it's just like stress, 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 stress. And like that's a reality of a pilot. Like like the economy sneezes, the airline catches a cold. It happens every single, 10, 20 years. And it's so funny because like we're having conversations. It's like, man, what could stop this freight train, And then wham, like March 2020, boom, like right off the tracks. And what made that time, I love that time because I got like, I didn't like it from a social standpoint because I'm very social, but like I loved it from like, hey, we can focus on the business. I got this leave for like a year and a half, whatever. And ultimately ended up getting paid because of the government bailout. But at the time, you didn't know. No one knew. There was like negotiation going on with the union and things like that. So as an airline pilot, this is going to happen. If you're sitting in your seat, and this is going to happen. Give it 10 years, 20 years, it'll happen.
It's so true. It is going to happen. And for anybody who didn't grow up with, a lot of us have pilots in the family, but if you're a newer pilot who doesn't have a touch point to the industry prior to say 2008, this is a reality of the airline industry. It is cyclical. So, the good times don't last forever. There will be furloughs at some point. So anyway, just to echo what Ryan is saying.
Yeah, I'm on my fourth airline and I've already had a furlough. And like literally we had 9/11, then 10 years to the recession, and then 10 years to COVID. And so like in 10 years, it's going to happen again. And you're not going to know what it is this time, right? We got lucky with these bailouts, right? But like you still had to go through the anxiety of like what was going to happen. So anyway.
Exactly what Alex was saying was, within 5 years, making $50,000 a year, you can be a millionaire if you really put your mind to it. And if you don't want to put your mind to it, if you're making $200,000 a year, you can easily accomplish the same thing. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
My favorite book in the world, written by a guy named Nassim Taleb, is called Antifragile. And
I love that book. Yeah.
Everybody needs to read this. It's so good. It's unbelievably good. Now, he wrote 5 books in the series, but Antifragile is the best one. And the whole idea is fragile means when things break, you break. Robust means when things break, you endure, right? And antifragile means when things break, you get better. And so what Ryan said was when the system broke, he's like, great, now I can focus on my business, right? He was anti-fragile. And so, you don't buy necessarily bulletproof real estate like I buy, right? $180,000 houses that rent for $1,500 a month. You don't buy, these are bulletproof, right? There's nothing that's gonna sink this asset class. And I don't buy it necessarily specifically only to make all my wealth, as much as that makes it so that no matter what happens, like the downside is protected. Okay. And then I can go do apartments where it's like, hey, this thing might go up in value wildly. Okay. And I can do things like come out to Maui and work on this sort of very speculative, right? Like, you're going to go across the country and build a podcast? Like, that doesn't seem safe. It's like, it doesn't have to be safe because the real estate's what makes me safe. So now I can take all these risks because guess what? If the podcast blows up, I'm good. Right. And if things hit the fan, it's like, good, go buy more real estate.
Right.
So it makes you, these sort of things, these things make you, or, that book really teaches you how to be anti-fragile. And for me, real estate has played a tremendous part in that.
For the listeners that might want to be active in real estate, you have a ton of experience, sort of literally coming from nothing, making your own way, learning how to do this. You've got, I want to direct listeners to your blog website, which is brokeasachoice.com, which I love that title. House number 4, I bought a house across the country that I couldn't afford and I still made a profit. Can you tell us about that story?
Yeah, I don't really blog on there anymore, but it is still an active site. Everything I've ever done.
It's good though. Yeah.
Everything I've ever done on that blog. I don't sell anything. There's nothing there to buy. It's just, everything I've ever done in full transparency. And so I bought this house. It was like 35 grand, right? There was weeds growing through the walls, right? It was in bad shape. But I looked at it, I'm like, dude, 30 grand. Like, I don't care. And so I put an offer and it got accepted. And then I went to another friend. I didn't have the money. I was like waiting for another house to refinance, that's real estate. When you're grinding, that's the real estate investor life. You think you got stressed, bro? Like all my money's out. I have $1,000 in the bank, and then and I'm like, I gotta go buy another 100,000, another $30,000 house. So I went to a friend, pilot friend actually of mine, who's a longtime investor of mine, and I was like, hey, I need 30, 40 grand for a couple of weeks until this refi comes in. And sure enough, he gave it to me at a low rate or market rate at the time, and took that cash, bought this house, 35 grand. My contractor basically floated me a couple of weeks and said, I'll go in there and start cleaning this thing up and fixing this thing up. The refi completed, and I got back 70,000. And so I went in there and I think we ended up on the house for like 70 grand, right? It transformed, right? That house was beat, right? Growth was just, you couldn't see the doors. House was beat. We fixed it up really good. We went to the bank. They said, yeah, it's worth like 100, right? I had 70 something into it. Now banks would do 75% LTV. So this system was interesting because what it meant was I put 75 or 70,000 into the house and they'd give me a loan for 70,000. So I financed the house. I got 25 or 30% equity. I have no money in the deal. Okay. Now that house today that I have 70,000 I think the mortgage is now 60 grand, right? Because it's been 5-6 years. The mortgage is like 60 grand. It's worth 180.
Yep.
And it rents for like $1,200 a month. My mortgage is $5. I mean, is that big money? No, but that's free money. Right. That's free money. That's free equity. Okay. Yep. And we're just getting started. We're 5 years in. In 20 years, that house will be worth $300,000. Again, you think, oh, $300,000, Alex, goodness, I make that in a year or two. And I'm like, right, but I'm getting it for free, and I have a whole smash of them.
So what Alex just did there was called a BRRR, which is a term that Brandon Turner coined, I think. You want to walk us through that real quick, and then we'll kind of transition to the...
It's a little harder to do nowadays, but it's called buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. Buy, bought the house, rehab, fix it up, rent, you got to get a tenant in there. Right, refi. You go to the bank and you say, "Hey, house is fixed up and there's a tenant in it, already cash flowing. What will you give me for it?" Right, and then you do the refi, and then so they give you the goal is to be all in on the house for 75% of what it'll be worth when you're done. That's the goal. It's hard to do now. It's harder to do now, but even if you can get, what if you could get 85% and you only have to leave 15? You only have to come out of pocket 10%, and now
it's essentially going to pay. Right, because it's a flip with a different exit strategy, right? You rent it, you refinance it, and it's tax-free in that case, whereas if you were to flip it, you're paying ordinary income tax on that.
If you are a pilot, do not flip houses, bro.
Right.
This is a mistake. Do not do that.
I've had lots of conversations. Yeah, I've had conversations with people about that. It's just, the profit you can make on a house flip is picking up a 4-day trip and going and kicking it for on some layovers. So it's definitely too active. The other thing I want to point out too, like BRRRR is not just reserved for residential. BRRRR you can do in commercial. We've BRRR'd several commercial properties where we've actually Tate, you're invested in one actually on the Tower Longview portfolio. We actually bought
multifamily BRRRR.
Yeah, I-20. We bought this property 100%. Actually, we bought it with 100% financing, and then with private debt, and then flipped it out with a commercial bank like a year later when we leased it up. So it's a powerful tax mitigated strategy that is worth looking into. So, Alex? I wanted to transition a little bit. So we've talked a lot about like these, the great days of yesteryear and all the stuff we should have bought, 5 years ago, and BRRRR strategies, but maybe how they aren't lucrative now. What's your investment strategy today? Like what moves can people make? What applicability can we take away now that maybe might be mitigate some of the excuses that people still have from, you can't do that anymore. So what do I do now? It's too hard to invest in real estate. What would you say to that?
Yeah, so I will say it really matters what you want your lifestyle to look like and what kind of resources you have. So there are people that are buying real estate that make money today all day long. Now, if you want to be an active investor, you have to be a lot more active than you did 10 years ago. Okay, you're going to have to be a lot more creative on deals. Guys like Pace Morby have come out as superstars of like subject to and creative financing, and he goes out and he creates deals. When I was doing it, right, it was kind of like the deals were sitting on the market because everyone was scared. And this is just the nature of the market cycle, right? When the market cycle's at the bottom, Buffett is famous for saying, wildly misquoted and misunderstood, by the way, when people are scared, be greedy, and when people are fearful, be greedy. When people are greedy, be fearful. And kind of right now, in real estate, a lot of people are being greedy, and so the time to be fearful is definitely the right time. Not to say that you shouldn't still do deals, but you should be suspicious, I'll say, or maybe paranoid. But there's still a lot of people making money. So if you want to be active, you're going to be a lot more creative. You're going to have to be a lot more active. If you want to be passive, you have to sort of know people that are doing the deals, right? You have to know the people that are doing the deals so you can get in on those deals. But the best time to practice is probably right now, because I mean, I'm not sure about this. In my estimation, the real estate market is only going to get, it's going to get a little uglier, and then it'll get easier. And once it spooks off all of the, right now we're in this moment of mania where everybody's like, they're doing the 2008 song, right? Real estate only goes up, and that will clear off, and then there'll be deals again. But I think right now, if you bought something that was in an area of appreciation, in 5 years, you're going to look like, you're going to look real smart, and people are going to still be saying like, "Oh, I'm just waiting for prices to come down." I mean, people are always
and imagine.
I'm waiting for prices.
I mean, in a year from now, I mean, I don't know what your predictions are, but all the analysts say rates are going to be down a year from now. And just an hour ago, the Fed stopped the interest rate hikes. They did say they're going to raise it 2 more times this year.
Yep.
But at some point, we got to hit the summit of interest rates, and we'll start our way back down.
I do study a lot of history, a lot of macroeconomics. Actually, my opinion, like everybody else's useless opinion, is I think based historically, the Fed's not going to drop rates slowly. They're going to wait for some cataclysmic event, and they'll drop it down to 0 or 1%. And people go, "Great, rates will be cheap." And I'm like, right. But whatever the cataclysmic event that creates that is going to destroy all of your a massive amount of jobs, and it will destroy the lending industry. And so in 2010, when people like prices were so low, right, and rates were still pretty low, right, but they'd only lend 50% or 45%. So you have to come up with monsters amount of cash, which is the one thing that nobody had in 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14. So in that said, in that vein, the people who are doing well now with real estate, that have a bunch of real estate, when the rates drop, I'm going to go and do a mass refi and pull out millions of dollars of equity, and the prices, will have been, the prices, if they are depressed, I'm going to win twice. I'll get cheap debt. I'll leverage the equity that I built over the last 10 years. And this is why the famous saying, "Don't wait to buy real estate and wait," is so effective. You have to kind of pay attention. It really just depends on how passive you want to be. But I don't know what's going to happen with rates. I tend to not think that it will be a slow decline. I tend to think they'll stay high for a while, and then something real bad will happen to the economy, some unpredictable black swan event, and then people will go, "We never knew that this could happen. We thought everything only went up all the time."
Yeah, we had a really great conversation with Neil Bawa about maybe 7 episodes ago, and we went deep into this. So if you didn't listen to that episode, jump on back to Neil Bawa's episode. We dive into this like really well. So
almost
really
nobody's smarter. So whatever I said, defer to him. I'm wrong.
No. I mean, you're right. He's yeah,
right in line. Well, Alex, can you share with us a couple of your favorite? I don't think we've asked a guest this before, but I think this is a perfect time to ask it. A couple of favorite books, real estate, and maybe philosophy, since that's kind of your thing.
Yeah, a lot of philosophy. Antifragile. Dude, Antifragile is the perfect blend of philosophy and economics, and highly recommend everybody read it. You really should read all 5 books, but man, that's a life changer. Dude, I have a lot of book lists on my website, on the Brokers of Choice website, actually. I read a book. My fiance would hate me for recommending this book. I read a book called Infinite Jest. That it's fiction, but it's about American culture, and it was written 25 years ago as a predictor of American culture 25 years into the future, so today. And it's astounding how well he got it right. And that book is very important for understanding the flaws of our sort of purposelessness and meaninglessness in American culture. So yeah, definitely not real estate. Sorry, but that's a deep philosophy book about American culture.
I like it.
Dude, in 2005, I read a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I didn't do anything with it, but one thing was planted in my head that I wouldn't harvest for about 10 years. Right, one thing: passive income.
Yep.
Passive income. If you make money while you sleep, you're okay. If you have to get up and get every dollar you earn, bro, it is going to be a tough life, because if you're 20 now, you don't realize how different you'll be at 30. Your work ethic, your intensity might fade. By the time you're 40, you start really looking at things. I'm going to turn 40 this year. And you start really looking at things like, man, I like doing certain things, and I really like doing other things. And you start to realize that the things you like doing are supersede the things that are always profitable. And so you might not want to do the thing that's profitable just because it's profitable anymore. And you might be like, F it. I didn't make the, So passive income solves a lot of those problems. So Rich Dad Poor Dad, real estate.
Love that.
Must.
Absolutely. Well, Ryan, you got any other, ninth inning questions before we wrap this thing up?
I mean, if you didn't take away something by now, you weren't listening or paying attention. So really impactful to our listeners. Really appreciate it, Alex. Like Tait said in the beginning, we have a lot of technical talks on this show, but I love the more philosophical and inspiring ones. So really appreciate that. And I was just clicking along around in your blog. Really nice website. We'll put that in the show notes as well. I love your wins and your losses for the year. That's a really good reflection. And I encourage you to just check out Alex and all the great things that he's got out in the interwebs. You'll learn a lot. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah,
thanks, Alex.
Also,
is there anything? Yeah,
I met Tait at a conference, dude. If you want to, one of the things I tell people, I'm like, you want to success, brainwash yourself around people that are successful, or as Brandon says, hang out with people that make your dreams look like a Tuesday.
Yeah.
Right. And so conferences are the way where people consolidate. They pay a barrier to entry. They got to fly there. They got to get a hotel, and they say, I'm going to go to, like, this weekend, I'm going to Limitless. Robert Kiyosaki will be there. Yep. Me and Tait met at Best Ever Conference. Like, if you want to change things and you're like, I don't know where to start, or this all seems like a scam, just surround yourself with a couple people that are doing real things. And conferences are the easiest way to do that, in person, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Anything that you'd like to direct listeners to, how to find out more about you?
Instagram, Twitter. It's pictures and shit talk. Alex
Felice.
Alex Felice. Yeah.
Perfect.
Nice.
All right, well, hey, Alex, thank you so much for coming on the show. We'll talk soon.
Yeah, buddy. Hey, thank you guys so much.
Thanks. Take care.